Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Zerion Spotlight on Customer Solutions. We have two really incredible solutions that we're going to look at today, one from Kleinfelder and the other from the William Frick & Company. My name is Berit Johannesson and I have Jonathan Su right next to me, and we're happy to be a part of today's session and sharing the successes of these different companies. So we have a few announcements here. As far as news and updates, John has started a new webinar series called Transformation Tuesday, and I'll actually hand it over to him right now to tell you a little bit more about that.
Sure, Barrett. So Transformation Tuesday is going to be a recurring webinar series that will actually be airing weekly. It'll be starting in the middle, like the second third of April, actually. So it'll be in about a month or so. The intention of this webinar series is really to expose customers to the different ways they can transform their data. One of the things that we've been putting a lot of emphasis in is our data flow automation service. And myself and the rest of the team feel like one of the things we want to do is really reach out to the community, gather challenges that you all have with your data, and then I'm going to be presenting one of those solutions each week. So if you click on that link, you'll be able to get more information about the webinar series. But basically what will be happening is I will be fielding in challenges from different companies, and each week I will solve one of those challenges and then present my solution to everybody who's in attendance.
Great, thank you. I know myself and other people are really excited to experience that and go through that. Another release that we have is of Zerion Academy. So everyone who attends a webinar, if they're not a part of Zerion Academy yet, we'll add them to Zerion Academy and they'll have access to the resources from today's session as well as resources from other trainings. So we do micro courses, and those micro courses can be on data collection or they may be on what ZIM is. So you're able to actually go into Zerion Academy and experience those courses. Additionally, every time you participate in an instructor-led training, we also make sure everyone in your team is a part of Zerion Academy and a part of a course, and you're able to access those recordings and those notes. So it's a really powerful tool, and we hope that you guys really appreciate it and log in and start looking at that material. Then we have our Form Builder certification. So our next Form Builder session will be April 4th, 5th, and 6th. We're doing a 3-day session, and each session is a total of 2 hours. If you want to participate, or if you know other teammates that, or other of your teammates who should be up to speed on building forms and building advanced forms with best practices, definitely make sure that they attend the certification. Additionally, if you're someone who's been using the classic form builder, this is a great way to expose yourself to the best practices within the new form builder. Not only that, is once you become certified, you do get some additional swag from us. So who doesn't love swag? Then we have 3 upcoming webinars. We have the one on the 29th, which is getting started with data integrations. On the 11th, setting up real-time dashboards. And then we have another 3-part mini-series of a half-hour sessions on JavaScript and JSON in 30 minutes. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and continue and introduce our presenters today. The first one is from Kleinfelder, and Rebecca Stevens will be presenting. Rebecca is an IT business analyst manager for Kleinfelder, a 2,000-person global engineering, construction management, design, and environmental professional services firm. In this role, she leads the development of electronic field data collection services. As part of developing these tools, Rebecca has standardized the forms and processes for different service lines within the company. Today, she's going to present on the soil exploration solution developed for Kleinfelder's geotechnical and environmental services. The solution starts with collection in the fields and ends with the final product in the hands of the project manager. I'm really excited to have Rebecca join us today. I've been working with Rebecca since 2014 when they started using iForm Builder. And it's been wonderful to work with her and her team to see all that they've done. I know that she's just presenting on one solution today, but they do have multiple solutions that are really powerful. So in just a few minutes, we'll have Rebecca share. But we also have an amazing customer in William Frick & Company, and Suraj has also been working with us since 2014. And Suraj is the product manager for SmartCat, which is an RFID solution for mobile asset tracking. Suraj is responsible for leading the development of SmartCat capture RFID, and mobile application and tags. Today he will introduce SmartCat and discuss healthcare applications where SmartCat and RFID will help solve workflow problems. SmartCat Capture is designed and developed by William Frick & Company, and William Frick & Company is a customer-driven ISO-certified process manufacturer of specialty labeling and marketing products, such as signs, barcode labels, product labels, and utility markers and RFID tags. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and hand it over to our experts. So, Rebecca, you're up first.
Okay. Well, thank you, Barrett. And as Barrett said, my name is Rebecca Stevens, and I'm from Kleinfelder. We're a global company and with offices in the United States, Canada, and Australia. So today I'm going to talk about our soil exploration solution. And I'm going to walk through, kind of what we mean by soil exploration first, to give you a bit of a background on it, and then we'll walk through what the old process was and what our new process is now, and go through an analysis and show you what the benefits are that we're getting out of this. So this is an example of the data collection environment. An example of the working conditions when they're either drilling or excavating soil. So this can be done in the middle of a city or the middle of nowhere. As you can see here, this is one that's a little bit more in the middle of nowhere. Weather conditions vary significantly from freezing cold. As you can see up here, there's snow in this picture with the drill rig. Here, there's none. It could be extremely hot. We have folks out in the Houston area where temperatures get up well above the hundreds, and everything in between. So data collection can also happen slowly or very quickly, and oftentimes the drilling rigs move very, very quickly, and samples get pulled out fast, and so they're entering data under a lot of pressure, essentially. So because of this whole environment, the devices that we need to look at a couple different things. We need to make sure that the devices that they were using were rugged and weatherproof, and able to work in a disconnected environment. And we also needed to make sure that data entry was really simple and easy, with minimal typing, so that they could keep up with the speed of the field work. Another example of the environment, this is a sample that they would take. So this is what you see in the middle of the screen there is a core that would have, a sampler that would have been pulled out of the ground. And so they would take this, they determine location lithology, so they would visually analyze the soil there, and perform some field screenings on it. And as you can see, things can get pretty muddy pretty quickly, especially if the weather is not nice like it is on that day. If it's raining, it can get pretty yucky pretty quickly. And the data can also vary really significantly. So this sample looks completely different from this one, especially if you have a trained eye in it. And the forms needed to be able to accommodate all of this varying data, so that it could be entered but still stay simple for people to use. Another example is this is an example of a paper form that they had been using and that is used out there. And this is what would come back into the office, and people needed to take this, understand what somebody had written on here, and enter it into other applications to get our final product. As you can see, it's kind of hard to read a lot of the handwriting. That we spent a lot of time trying to translate and transpose all of it. So if I take a little bit of a step back, I can move on to kind of how we set up our architecture for data collection. So we've been using Zerion's iForm platform as kind of our core for doing this. We have it on the iPads. We do have some places where we use Collector as well. The solution is just strictly iForm. And then so that's what gets placed into the hands of the field staff. And then the data from there goes back up into Zerion servers. And we also have a administration console that we've created that allows us to give a little bit more power over the data to the different offices that are using it. So we can open up certain reference lists or smart tables for them to be able to edit without giving them full access to everything in iForm. And then the data here it talks to our internal SQL server, and we actually that's up in Azure. And our SQL Server then is able to help us report out the data and analyze it in many different ways. We have tools all from Gint and into GIS from there, Excel, Word, SQL, SSRS, SQL Server reporting services, PDFs, SharePoint. So we have a lot of power once we get that data back to us. Here's an overview of the process. So as you walk through the current process, which is on the top, they would collect the data in the field, and then at the end of every day, they would submit their field notes to the office, if we're lucky. On good days, they would either come back to the office and submit them, or they would take a picture on their phone and they would email in the picture of their notes. Some places you wouldn't even see the notes for a few days or a week if they don't have good connectivity or they just don't have time to do that. And that can take 15 minutes a day just to gather all of your notes together and send those in. Then after that, there would be a data entry step so that those notes would get handed to a scientist and they would enter those notes into Bentley's Gint software. And that usually takes about 30 minutes a log, and that can actually vary pretty significantly. We have some that are significantly more complex, and so they would take a lot more time. And then from there, there's a review process where the scientist or the project manager would review those logs that come out of the system and make edits on them, and then they'd finalize that. With our new process, the data is still collected in the field. So the change is that now they're doing this electronically in the field, and so on the iPads, they're filling out iForms and submitting those notes electronically. And now we can get those notes throughout the day if they have connectivity, or at the very least, they can easily synchronize their iPads at the end of the day. So that's improved that piece significantly. Once they submit it, we have some services on there that I'll talk about that have trigger these different reports to come out. So it goes into our SQL Server system, and they get a field reports emailed directly to them, and then they get these draft logs emailed to them. And that whole process is about 5 to 10 minutes a day. We've completely eliminated this data entry step here, and so now it's really just as long as it takes to synchronize their data. And so from there, there's a review process, and the review process is fairly similar, except that it's been improved a little bit because the quality of the data that's coming back has been improved. So overall, we went from about 45 minutes a log, 45 plus minutes a log, and to about 10 minutes a log in these fieldwork and data entry steps. So moving on from there, we had to take into a lot of things under consideration when we were trying to design this in order to make this work. My goal was to be able to take these forms and set something up that we could use on any of our geotechnical or environmental projects. So in order to do that, we had to look at what our company standards were. We had to look at ASTM regulatory standards around how the data is supposed to be collected. And so we took all of those and designed the form to those standards, and that was allowed us to have something that we could give standardized across the company and we could hand out. It's a really complex form. It's probably the most complex we've developed to date, and we've developed quite a number of forms so far. There's hundreds of fields on it, numerous lookups, a few smart tables, a lot of option lists, and a bunch of subforms. So because it was so complicated, we also felt that usability was really important. So we tried to use things that will allow the people in the field to enter the data in the easiest way possible. So we tried to do things like use select widgets as much as possible, even over pick widgets when we could. We used pick widgets as a kind of a secondary, and then we did a lot of places where we could automatically fill in data. And to do that, we set up some integrations with our financial system. So we are able to pull in all of our projects from our financial system into a smart table, and then provide that through an option list, and they would pick the project they're working on, and then all of the related information would just fill right into the form. So they didn't have to enter in things over and over again. They just had to enter that one number. And so we try to do things like that throughout the form in places where we could. So this is the top part of the form of what the tech or the scientist is going to be doing in the field. And then when they're done, they submit the data. And then, as I said, that happens, depending on what conditions they have. If they don't have connectivity, it might be later. If they do, they might submit it right away. From there, this is kind of the second step. So they submit the data, they synchronize everything, and then we have an endpoint web service call that we've set up on the form. And so the call gets called to our web service that we've designed, and the web service takes all of the data that's being submitted to it, puts it into our SQL database, and then it runs a SQL Server report, an SSRS report, and this is an example of what the report would look like. So this is automatically generated. It attaches it to an email and sends that to the person that did the logging and the project manager that's listed on the project. And then it also files that report into a SharePoint site. So some of the things that you see on here, the data is designed to be a field report. This doesn't look like the final boring logs, and so it doesn't look quite like what we had looked at before. And I can have an example here where you can actually see the difference of this is what the old notes look, this is what the new notes look like. And you can see that the quality is much better here because we've been able to put some consistency around what it is that they're writing. They could write whatever they want on this side. And then we're also even able to put photographs in there and tie them to different pieces of data that they're collecting, which has been a huge benefit for them. So then the next piece that happens after that is we do a second web service call, and this is to a web service that we've set up that works with our GINT system, and that maps the data over to Bentley's GINT software, and that draft log is programmatically generated from that using templates that we've set up in GINT, and that gets PDF'd and emailed to the project manager and the field technician. And then this is what the field technician would take, or not the scientist would then take this, and they would review this, and they review the notes that you saw before against each other, and then they would mark up the log based on their findings and get their final log. And so the other things that the benefits that they get by doing this is we've pushed everything into a SQL GINT database, and that links up with GIS, and so we're able to create these efficient exploration plans by just going in, opening it up, zooming into the area, and all of the boring locations are automatically there because we've pulled them in and geolocated everything when we went and did the drilling. From there is our last step. We've been using SharePoint, and so we have all of the reports come into a couple SharePoint sites that we've set up. And so we've set them up based on kind of the services that we offer. So this one that you're looking at is our geotech services, and the data comes in, and they have it's actually the PDF reports that come into here. They can manage those files in here. They can search and find what they need, and then as well as if they have a problem with some of the data that happened or somebody forgot to enter something in, they can actually send the forms back, reassign them back to the iPads from our SharePoint site. And so that allows the scientists and the project managers a lot more control over the whole process. And so they don't have to have full access again. They don't have to come to somebody who's an iForm administrator in order to do some of these things. They can just do that through their own tools, through the process that they're used to. So throughout that, we've found a lot of different benefits. We've seen savings where we have the higher quality legible notes. We can tag our photos to the notes. We have external integrations that we've done so we can reduce as much as possible our redundant data entry, automate things where possible. We spend a lot less time shuffling papers in the office and field. We've cut down significantly on how much paper we use, which is nice to see too. Communication of information is faster and easier now. The field notes are because they're immediately available. And then we have other improvements where, with the data, you don't have to transpose those field notes, those handwritten, messy notes. And so you know exactly what it was that was collected in the field. So all of this is around, we we set this process up, and we had used it on some smaller sites, but we decided to do a small pilot with our geotech group. And so we rolled out the forms to them and trained up a few of their field staff. And this is a group that does a lot of drilling. They do this on a daily basis. They're out there every day, multiple people out there every day. And so since we rolled this out to them, which was around August 2016, they've submitted 500 plus soil borings. And we've seen for the entire initiative that we have around these soil explorations, we've got over 1,000 right now since we set up those forms in this process back in 2015. And so we've seen a lot of feedback from this pilot team on this, where they reiterate that handing an iPad to someone is a pretty significant change. And so there is some initial training, especially with these complex forms. It's a little bit different for them, and they're used to being able to write things wherever they wanted on the piece of paper, whereas on the form now they have to put things in certain places. But because of that initial training, but once they can do that, and because we're enforcing those types of things, it saves significant time on log generation and significant time on the back end. And so this is feedback directly from the team where they said that. They've also come back to us saying that they see a lot of those intangible savings and benefits. They've seen much higher quality field logging. It helps root out if we have people that need better training as well, because they may not be filling things out correctly. So then you can focus on that and go back out and make sure that you have your staff trained the way you want them. You get those quick turnarounds back, not only back to the PMs, but we can also get them out to the clients. And then the other piece is where they can actually start analyzing the data as people are still in the field. So especially on sites where they have things or potential issues out there, they can send those logs back to the office during the day as they collect the data, and the project managers can be analyzing it and providing recommendations on what to do next with the clients. So we've seen a lot of benefits. The team is very happy with it, and we've been rolling this out to the rest of the company because of that. So that's the end. Thanks for the opportunity to present. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I thought that was fantastic. And I think it's really helpful for people to see really where you started and where you've come. And I know that you have additional plans in the future to expedite different processes. Now, are any of those future plans for this particular project?
Yeah, we're continuing to add more integrations and more technology to it as we can. So for this project, that those forms that you saw, they're pretty much final. We're adding different different features. We're adding rock logging to that one. We're also going to be adding to more of the service itself and continuing to build on the forms that they're using. So we started with one that was a really key form for them where they could really see a significant benefit, and that is allowing us to then spread out to all of the other things that they do.
Great. And then another question that came in is, for those individuals who are just getting started, and even if you were to think back to when you got started, what recommendations and advice would you have?
There's a lot of change management that you have to do, and even when you have folks that are really excited about using the technology, it is a change for them to pick up that iPad and put down, or that tablet and put down that piece of paper. So what we found that worked really well was really partnering with the folks out there that were using the devices, and we tried to find something that they would see a really significant benefit around. So we found some really key forms. And instead of focusing on a specific project that we were doing, we focused on things that they could use on multiple projects. And because the other thing that we run into a lot is if we look at just a project that's happening, projects get delayed and things move around and priorities shift. And so if you focus more on, we do this type of work over and over again, it's easier to get that rolled out. And so we found a lot of success doing it that way.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. That's great advice. Another question that came in from Nathan was that you mentioned that you have other forms that you use. Approximately how many and for what sort of activities?
So we've got, I'm not sure of the actual number, but we cover quite a few of the services that we have. We have construction, management, water, wastewater, geo services. They saw a lot of environmental services forms. Environmental services is one that we started with. So we do everything from their daily field forms to the sampling that they do in the fields. Um, Really, we almost have an entire notepad for them, essentially in that iPad when they go out there. So we've almost completely reduced the paper for the environmental group, and we're starting to do that in the other areas as well. So we also have, I mean, we we've also reached out into the GIS space too. So you didn't see it here, but we do have projects where we integrate all of the GIS with what we're doing with the data collection, and that's also been a huge benefit to those programs for organizing the data.
And I will say, I think I would guess that you probably have at least 1,000 forms that you've created, and I'm not sure if all of those are active forms, but you definitely have a lot.
Oh, the majority are.
And the last question, well, at least the last one so far, is what feature from Zerion's data collection has been the most helpful for redefining your workflow?
Oh, that's hard. There's a lot of great features with it. Um, I think that being able to work in a disconnected environment and synchronize the data back has been one of the really significant differences. That's enabled us to use all of the other tools that they provide or that's provided through it. Without that, I think that would have been a showstopper with us being able to get those iPads in folks' hands because we have so many places where it's spotty or they don't want to buy, can't afford the cellular service on it. So, that's been huge.
Great. And then one more question was, do you use any additional hardware out in the field or just primarily the device?
Primarily the device. We do scan barcodes. We do that through using the device itself. The only other thing that we've done is we've used some of the more the GPS transponders so that we can hook up to the iPad so we can get more accurate GPS coordinates. And we actually don't use those on we only use those in a small subset, I think, of the projects where it really does matter exactly where those points are.
Great. Well, I think that's it for now for you, Rebecca. I may have more questions for you later at the end as they come in. But thank you so much for presenting. I think that was really helpful, and I'm glad Kleinfelder would let you present for us today.
Great, thank you.
And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and hand over the presenter rights to Surej. And Surej is from William Frick and Company, and he is our next spotlight.
Hello, thank you, Barrett, for the introduction. Just so I can remind you, I am Suraj, as Barrett mentioned. Also, Rebecca, that was a really cool presentation, really insightful. What I'm going to talk about today is a solution from William Frick and Company, SmartCat. And first, I'm going to introduce William Frick and Company, then introduce SmartCat, and then sort of build a little bit of a scenario for you guys to explain two solutions that we've encountered in the healthcare space. So to start with, William Frick and Company was actually started 40 years ago by Bill Frick, and the idea was to create utility signs and labels and tags, actual stickers. So we are sticker guys, but essentially for asset identification and inspection. Around the 80s was when barcodes as a technology sort of took over, and we got into outdoor harsh environment barcode labels, so for OEMs, and if you actually check out any label on transformers or poles, which I don't know why anyone would, but if you do, you would notice these labels. These are giant reflective labels, and that's a major part of our business in that sense. The other things that we've gotten into over time are RFID. So RFID around 2000, Walmart had a mandate, and RFID sort of boomed. And RFID stands for radio frequency identification. And the idea was that Walmart wanted all of their suppliers to tag items with RFID tags. We sort of got into the space because we were in the asset identification space already, but we got into it from a durable tag standpoint. So we've started working with OEMs and oil and gas and utilities in implementing RFID for years now, and airlines is a big industry for us for RFID implementation. Delta tracks oxygen generators with RFID tags, and we supply those tags to Delta, United, and all of this sort of brings us to SmartCat. So SmartCat is a brand of William Frick and Company, and the CAT stands for Capital Asset Tracking. So it's Smart Capital Asset Tracking. The idea was to kind of give people who are interested in RFID an opportunity to sort of have a foot in the door. Usually RFID can have a very costly and a cumbersome infrastructure requirement, and we wanted to create something that gave all our customers an opportunity to play around with the technology or even use it and scale it to the point that is necessary for them without going into the big infrastructures. And just to give you perspective, large infrastructures for RFID could go up to about $150,000 to $200,000. So with that in mind, we can dive into the solution. So there are two parts to our solution. One part is SmartCat Forms, which is nothing but a white label version of the amazing iForm app, which I'm sure everyone here is well aware of, and as Rebecca explained too, is just an intelligent app that does a lot of form building and helps you capture a lot of intelligent information. And what we've done is we've created our version of it, and it's available on Android and iOS. It's called SmartCat Forms. That's the first part. But the second part is another app called SmartCat Capture, and this is something that William Frick has developed. This app is essentially to capture smart data in form of barcode, UHF, and NFC. So if you've played around with iForm, then you may already know that iForm has the ability to connect to third-party apps. The idea here was to create that closed infrastructure. So you have SmartCat Forms, in which you can create forms and have widgets that speak to third-party apps, and then have the ability to use that widget to capture RFID data. And I will explain that further in the solutions. But the idea was to give intelligent forms also automated data to capture. So I think we've been working for 2 years on designing the solution, and we launched the solution last year, September, on the Android platform, and the iOS platform is just launched. So with that, I just want to really quickly sort of give you a background on RFID 101, if you may. UHF is ultra high frequency. So William Frick and Company deals with UHF and NFC tags, but NFC is near field communication. So the simple difference between the two is that UHF tags are long read range, so you can read them through plastic, wood, glass, and you can read them multiple at a time, so you can read thousands at a time. And so if you want to imagine thousands of assets in a room, you could potentially read thousands within seconds. You can scan tags that are sort of hidden behind things, like I said, plastic or wood or glass. And near field communication is kind of like your access to or door access cards. So they're really short read range, they're high security, and that's why access cards are high frequency, which is near field communication tags, and they provide great proof of presence because of the security aspect. So hopefully that sort of clears a few initial questions if you are not aware of RFID, but if you have any other questions, we can always answer that towards the end. And then I'm going to go into the first solution. So the first solution here was basically for the sanitation within the healthcare and hospitals, essentially. So we're working with a hospital in California, Ventura County, where we're trying to help them make sure they have accurate tracking of the patient room sanitation. So if you may, I'm going to build this picture. Just follow along. So imagine a hospital which has multiple rooms. It has a housekeeping unit, and it has a supervisor for the housekeeping unit, and then it has its housekeeping staff. The idea is that the housekeeping staff would have iForms on their phones or tablets, and they basically would receive a notification saying, Room 103A in the LDR, which is the labor delivery room, is now unoccupied and is in need of cleaning. And this comes in from the supervisor. So you can do this from iForm Builder. And once they get this notification, they walk into the room and they hit the NFC scan. So NFC scan within iForm would sort of take you to this screen. And for those who use third-party widgets, they would know that the app sort of takes you to the third-party app, and you have the ability to use the third-party app at that point. But for those of you who haven't used the third-party widget in the iForm Builder, then this is where the transition from iForm to SmartCat Capture happens, which is our William Frick and Company app. So they walk up to a room tag, which is basically an NFC tag on the wall, and they scan it. And the way you scan an NFC tag is that you tap your device to the tag. So imagine if you have an iOS device, it's kind of like your Apple Pay. Once you tap the tag, it actually changes the data shown on the tag. So the tag is built with e-paper technology, which is like Kindle technology. So the print on the tag actually alters. So right now you can see that the tag will say cleaning in progress, do not enter. And so the staff will go through and clean using iForm. They would go through the checklist and clean the room and ensure everything is followed to the T. And once they've done that, once they've gone through the process, they would have to go back to the tag and confirm that they've cleaned it. And so they also have to sign it, and they have to send this email to their supervisor, send this report to their supervisor. But when they go back to tap the tag changes, message which says disinfection in progress. So just a little bit of background. After a room is cleaned, standards recommend the room to be not used for 10 minutes so that it's completely dried up. And that's kind of where most healthcare related infections happen, or hospital related infections happen, where in that 10 minutes period, most people don't realize that 10 minutes period is very crucial for the bacteria to die out. So this gives them a visual to follow that within the room. So if there's a patient or a doctor or a nurse who's coming into this room, they have visual knowing that it wasn't cleaned. And then 10 minutes later, the message changes to last cleaned. And so now you have a visual identifier that it's been cleaned. Now this is just healthcare, but you can think of this application within hospitality very easily, and restaurants. But the idea is to combine RFID with iForm technology. So with this, I'm going to jump into, I forgot to mention this last bit, which is iForm helps us connect all of this data to Google Sheets, which also gives the nurses at Ventura County the ability to look at a dashboard of what room is clean, what room hasn't been cleaned, and who did it, and basically who's the supervisor on that. So with that, I'm going to jump into the next sort of use case, which is, again, for Ventura County. It's the biomedical use case. So in this scenario, think that you're in the biomedical department, and in the biomedical department, basically the biomedical department is responsible for tracking all the assets within the hospital and maintaining the assets and and making sure that they're up to date and they're calibrated, and not just for financial records but also for patient safety. So what we're going to start with is, again, a notification. So this is all related to the emergency department. So think of a scenario where there is a triage or there is high influx of patients. Biomedical departments usually, at least in Ventura County, need to make sure that equipment is updated and to standard within those departments, especially the emergency department. So there's a notification through iForm which is sent to an operator's phone or tablet, which says basically that we've been notified that there's an infusion pump that needs to be repaired. Please locate and replace it. And so at this point, the operator would go into the ED, which is the emergency department, press the RF scan button, and the RF Prisma is essentially a Bluetooth handheld reader that you use to capture UHF RFID tags. And when he presses that, he would use the UHF reader to capture UHF tags. Now, on the left, you see a tag that is attached to all the assets, which is called the asset identification tag. On the right, you see a repair tag, which is only attached to assets that need to be repaired. So these are both UHF tags, but they've been programmed differently. And the idea is that when the operator scans multiple assets within the room, he or she will get a list of all the assets in the room. So think of this showing the infusion pumps, the bed, the wheelchairs, the monitors, everything. And when this is all transferred into iForm, we basically have a smart lookup which compares all the list of assets that have been collected and tells the person or the operator at that moment, hey, there is this particular device that is in this room that needs to be repaired. And that's simply because the UHF tag, the repair UHF tag, has a different coding on it that enables iForm to basically tell you that you need to replace this infusion pump, and it tells you that it's in this room. Apart from that, this form can also tell them there's supposed to be another infusion pump in here which is not in here. Please look for it. Or there are 2 extra machines, ECG monitors in here which they're not supposed to be in here. So this gives you sort of like an understanding of how form would work with RFID in this case, but it's much more general than just healthcare. We've realized that asset management and repair and calibration is an important piece of a lot of businesses, and we work with even pharmaceuticals to kind of implement the solution to help them track their lab assets. But in general, those are the 2 solutions that I hope give you a good idea and understanding of what we're trying to do here. But at this point, thank you for listening, and Barrett.
All right, Suraj, we have a couple questions for you. The first one is, you just went through an amazing process with SmartCat. Was there any sort of process or any data collection before you used iForm and white labeled iForm?
Yeah, so well, there are 2 sides to this. From our perspective, we actually offered another solution, which was a Windows-based solution, a Windows-based handheld solution, and that one had RFID as well. But with that, Windows became obsolete, and we wanted to sort of evolve into iOS and Android, and that's where we started working with iForm. But the other part of that answer is from the customer's perspective. A lot of customers that we've spoken to, a lot of them don't really have advanced technologies in place before they want to jump into RFID or even a simple collection app, let alone an intelligent one like iForm. So it basically was more pen and paper than anything, at least for most of our customers.
Great, that's really helpful to hear as well. Another question would be, you walked us through this end-to-end solution where you have the RFID reader, you have iForm, and then you have a Google spreadsheet showing the results. Throughout that whole process, what would you say took the most amount of time to build in that workflow?
So that's a good question. I think the most amount of time that we took to build anything would be the reader and the tag communication, because we want to. RFID can be a little bit of a complicated technology to implement. So I think what was easier from our standpoint was working on the forms and the workflow, because I think iForm has a very well developed sort of training and a support mechanism, but we had to start from scratch for the RFID, and I think I would say for us that was the piece that took the most time to build.
Great. And another question would be, do you have any lessons learned from the development?
Yeah, I think the major lesson that we've sort of understood is with RFID and iOS and Android implementations, it's very important to kind of give give customers the right sort of background to build the right scenario that is applicable to them, and show tags that really would make a difference to their workflow and actually make it easier for them to track their assets, because there's just so many things that one can show or talk about. It's just it has to, especially the people who are capturing the data and collecting the data, they have to be be shown their the solution that really matters to them, rather than sort of the whole gamut, which can be very overwhelming for a lot of people, especially when they're starting out to use the solution.
Well, I want to thank you for that awesome presentation. I also want to thank Rebecca for your presentation. Before we actually close out here, we do have a question for both of you. What would be on your Zerion wish list for the future?
I'll go. So I think what we would really sort of like is having variable data transfer from iForm to a third-party app, which would sort of give us a lot more flexibility with what we're doing, and building sort of more intelligent forms. Yeah, I think that comes straight to mind.
So an improvement with the data collection and the integration with third party. I think that's great. And what about you, Rebecca?
Sorry, mute. Yeah, I think that's definitely, I agree with Raj on that. I would add, I think having improving some of the widgets might be great. Especially the smart table search one, to be able to make it so you could filter that with the searchable widget, so that way you don't have to create the option list anymore. We could just have everything based off of the smart tables, and that would save us a lot of time.
So do a segmented option list into a smart table search.
Yes.
Yes. John and I talk about that all the time, so we agree. So just without further ado here, I do want to, for all the folks who are listening in, I do want to make sure that you know that we are going to be sending over a PDF, and in the PDF we have all these links to these additional support tools that we have available. And I also recommend that people check out our blog. You can actually subscribe to articles and get notifications when new blog stories come about. In the next 48 hours, you'll receive access to Zerion Academy if you don't have a login yet. You'll receive an email with a link to the recording of the session as well as the session presentation PDF. A huge thank you to Kleinfelder and William Frick and Company for sharing Suresh and Rebecca with us today and doing these awesome presentations. If there's anyone on today's session who'd also like to present in the future, please let us know. We are going to have more of these. in the upcoming months, and we love to hear the stories. And of course, our customers can tell these stories much better than we can. So thank you very, very much, everybody, for attending, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day.